Pamela Marinda from the University of Zambia. Our paper is titled Nutritional Impact of Agricultural Diversification in Zambia, and we are exploring the relationship between agricultural diversification, household data diversity, and child nutritional status. Now, Zambia is a country that is situated in the southern part of Africa, and it has a population of about, as of 2015, it was projected to have a population of 15.4. That is according to the Central Statistics Office. And Zambia has high poverty levels, and about 40.8% of the poor are actually live in extreme poverty, and 76.6% of these live in rural areas, and 23 in urban areas. Zambia, like other developing countries, is faced with the double burden of malnutrition. So there's the issue of undernutrition and micronutrient deficiencies, especially vitamin A, iron, zinc, and iodine. Now, between 2007 and 2014, Zambia experienced a shift in malnutrition prevalence rates from 45% of stunting, which was reported in 2007, to 40% stunting in the 2014 DHS survey. There are also improvements in vitamin A and iron deficiencies, especially in children under the age of 5 and women of reproductive age. Despite these improvements, Zambia still faces several challenges, food security challenges as well as nutritional challenges, and most people experiencing micronutrient deficiencies are the rural poor who depend on agriculture. Now, the government of Zambia has been promoting agricultural diversification as a strategy, a policy strategy to improve micronutrient adequacy of diets and household food security in general. There's been evidence from countries like Nepal, Tanzania, and India on the positive impacts of agricultural diversification on economic growth and also on improvement of caloric intake as well as household food security in general. Only one study has presented findings on the link between crop diversification and its impact on child nutritional outcomes, and this was based on just a small study that was conducted in the eastern part of Zambia. So national level evidence is lacking, and therefore this study will address the question whether, agricultural diversification has contributed to the improvement in food security and nutrition at household level, and we also acknowledge that there are other factors that contribute to nutritional outcomes of children and women, and therefore we'll be looking at other contributors to this improvement in nutritional outcomes in the period 2007 to 2014. Our overall objective was to determine the impact of agricultural diversification on nutritional status and data diversity of children under the age of 5 in Zambia. We had 3 objectives, as you can see from the slide. So the first one was to estimate the effect of agricultural diversification on selected food and nutrition security indicators across the distribution of rural households within children under the age of 5. And then the second one was to assess the association between data diversity and nutritional status of children in the time period 2007 and 2014. And then the last one was to determine the predictors of stunting in children under the age of 5, as between 6 to 59 months in this same time period. So we adopted this conceptual framework, so it just shows the link between agricultural diversification and nutritional outcomes, both for women and children. So I'm not going into the details of this, but you can contact me in case you want further explanations on this. We used the DHS data set of 2006, 2007, and that of 2013, 2014. And we targeted mainly rural households that had children aged 6 to 59 months. And we had 3,854 households from the 2006-2007 DHS survey, and about over 7,000 in the households in the 2013-2014 DHS survey. So I'd like now to present to you some of the findings that we've done so far from our analysis. And so these are just the household characteristics. And you can see that between the 2 years, the 2 time periods, we are comparing what changed in terms of household characteristics. So there was a slight change in age of household head, with 2014 having the household head with the more years or older. And then there was also a shift in a proportion of households that were accessing treated drinking water, as well as those that were accessing the toilet. And there was also a shift in the wealth status between the 2 time periods. In terms of education level of the women, there wasn't a big change between 2007 and 2014. So most of the women of childbearing age or who had children under the age of 5 had primary level education, and majority of them also had normal BMI. For the food groups consumed, from the figure on the slide, you can see that majority of the children did not consume animal source foods. Most of the foods that were consumed were staples, cereals, roots, and tubers, as well as the fruits and vegetables, and less of the animal source foods. We then went ahead to determine the individual data diversity of the children, and majority, actually over 3/4 of the children, did not meet the minimum dietary diversity. And with regards to prevalence of stunting in children, again, in rural areas in the 2 time periods, there is still overall high stunting levels. Of course, 2007 had the highest compared to 2014. There was a slight improvement in 2014. But as you can see, the high proportion of overall 48.2% of stunting in children is even above the national level stunting. Okay, and then for 2014, again, it's higher than the national level. And male children had a lower height for age Z-scores compared to the female children. We also observed regional differences in stunting levels, with the Copper Belt and the Lusaka and Southern Province being better off in terms of height for age Z-scores, and Luapula and Northern Province were most disadvantaged. We then went ahead to compare the means of selected characteristics in normal children and standard children, just to see what the differences were. And so the wealth status and age of the household were significant. And we also looked at livestock, tropical livestock units. So that made a difference. So households that had livestock were better off and compared to those in terms of the height for age Z-scores. And there are other child characteristics that also played a role in determining the status of the children, the height for age Z-scores, and you can see duration of breastfeeding. Children who are breastfed longer were actually, many of them were stunted compared to those that were breastfed for a shorter period of time. And then also the number of antenatal visits also had a role. Those mothers who paid fewer visits to the antenatal clinic had their children stunted compared to those that made more visits. There was a weak association between dietary diversity and the 3 indices of nutritional outcomes, the WHZ, WAZ, and HAS. Yeah, so we ran a regression to determine the determinants of height for XZ scores in children, and access to treated water, access to toilet facility, as well as age of the child were significant determinants, and wealth status, mother's BMI region, and child birth weight were also significant in children 6 to 23 months in the period 2015. In conclusion, different sets of factors contribute to stunting in the two age groups of children in the two time periods. There was a significant reduction in stunting levels. A significant reduction in stunting levels was observed between 2014 and 2015, and this was attributed to positive improvements that were observed in a number of household level characteristics, such as wealth index, access to clean water, and access to toilet facility, as well as some other nutrition interventions that were put in place. So policy implications, the analysis reveals few direct points for intervention to prevent future stunting in children. So first, poverty reduction in rural areas should be priority for the government of Zambia. And secondly, interventions geared towards ensuring access to safe, clean water and toilet facilities should be accelerated and sustained. And policy interventions focusing on increasing farm productivity should be combined with behavior change communication to provide information on the importance of consuming diverse diets. Thank you.